Decades ago, the world suddenly underwent a mysterious transformation. Malicious ghosts began appearing across the globe, throwing society into chaos and marking the beginning of the mythical era. In this new age, people could awaken unique classes, learn powerful skills, advance through ranks, and continuously grow stronger. Awakened individuals became humanity's frontline defenders, battling malicious ghosts and terrifying monsters across Blue Star. Through countless struggles and sacrifices, they carved out safe territories where humanity could continue to survive. There was no doubt about it. The mythical era belonged to the awakened class holders. They stood at the center of the world, shaping its future through their strength and determination. The scene shifted to Haiqing High School in the Longxia Federation, where a megaphone announced the start of the awakening ceremony. Students gathered around a glowing golden magic circle with an altar at its center. Combat instructor Lu Hu, a rugged bearded man, told them this moment would decide their futures and hoped each student would awaken their desired profession. Among them was Fang Zhou. Having transmigrated years ago, he saw this as the long-awaited awakening day. Lu Hu called him forward. As students parted, Fang Zhou stepped into the magic circle. As Fang Zhou approached, several girls began discussing what profession he might awaken. One guessed that he would become a priest based on the impression he gave, while another agreed and remarked that it would be a waste for someone with his looks to awaken as anything else. Not everyone shared that view. A blonde-haired boy watched Fang Zhou with obvious jealousy and argued that appearance meant little because awakened professionals ultimately depended on the strength of their professions. A student wearing sunglasses beside him immediately voiced his agreement. From the back of the crowd, a female student spoke up in Fang Zhou's defense, pointing out that the others were simply jealous of his good looks. From the side, Lu Hu reviewed his file, noting Fang Zhou was an orphan of martyrs with strong academics and physical ability. Fang Zhou reached the altar and pressed a finger onto the glowing magic circle. The runes activated, and a surge of energy hit him. A massive pillar of golden light erupted into the sky, shaking the courtyard and forcing students to shield their eyes. Witnesses reacted with shock at the intensity, wondering what profession he would awaken. Suddenly, dark green-black flames broke through the golden light as shadow energy wrapped around Fang Zhou and formed a huge cross-shaped phenomenon above the school. Lu Hu stared in disbelief, confirming it was a heaven-and-earth phenomenon and questioning what profession caused it. Within the spectral mist, an undead army appeared. Skeletal knights, ghouls, horned monsters, and higher undead rulers like a skeletal king, a skull-faced mage, and a horned shaman. At the center, Fang Zhou remained calm and activated a golden system window. It confirmed his successful awakening, Necromancer. As he repeated the name, a massive shadow spirit emerged behind him and merged with his shadow. Students immediately burst into laughter, mocking him for awakening a necromancer, calling it the weakest combat profession despite its rarity, and debating its reliance on the undead realm, which was said to be difficult for living humans to access. Fang Zhou ignored the ridicule. His status panel appeared showing Necromancer, apprentice lower rank, and low base attribute. He clenched his fist as a system activated, congratulating him for awakening the Undead Realm Experience system. The system explained it had linked him to the Undead Realm, created an undead clone, and allowed him to explore, devour undead, level up, and even summon the clone into reality at risk. Fang Zhou examined the green skull flame in his hand, realizing the system suited his profession perfectly. He activated the system, and his vision shifted to the Undead Realm. There, a towering skeletal warrior in dark armor stood in a ruined wasteland. Fang Zhou realized this was his clone and learned he could temporarily possess it, gain experience, and that slain undead could later be summoned in the real world. The skeleton stood on a pile of defeated monsters in a world under a blood-red moon. Understanding the system's potential, Fang Zhou concluded that with enough kills, he could build an endless undead army. He declared the entire undead realm would become his hunting ground. Fang Zhou decided to save exploring the undead realm for later and focus on the awakening ceremony instead. He instructed the system to summon his clone into the real world. The system responded immediately, and a green, ice-shaped magic circle formed beneath him. Ethereal chains and glowing runes surged upward as a pillar of green flame appeared, gradually materializing his armored skeleton clone wrapped in a dark cloak. Fang Zhou noted that it could be fully summoned in reality and was currently his strongest summon. On stage, Instructor Lu Hu called the next student, by Xiaochan, while briefly observing Fang Zhou and the skeleton. He felt it was a pity that such a promising student had awakened a necromancer profession. Despite this, several female students approached Fang Zhou to encourage him, saying he shouldn't be discouraged and that even as a necromancer, he could still achieve greatness. They also praised the intimidating skeleton summon. Meanwhile, the blonde-haired student grew irritated, unable to accept Fang Zhou's popularity, and convinced himself the summon couldn't surpass his assassin profession. He decided to destroy it, assuming novice necromancers could only produce a limited number of summons. He quietly activated a concealed weapon skill, Silent Sleeve Arrow, and fired a high-speed projectile at the skeleton's head. At the last second, the skeleton vanished in a burst of wind, causing the attack to miss completely. Before the student could react, the skeleton reappeared behind him and struck him with a heavy blow, sending him crashing to the ground and knocking him out. Fang Zhou then walked up calmly. The injured student tried to retreat and reassess, assuming Fang Zhou himself must be weak despite the summoned strength. In desperation, he charged again with a purple dagger aimed at Fang Zhou's throat. Fang Zhou stopped the attack instantly by catching his wrist mid-strike. Green lightning energy surrounded his arm as he dismissed the boy's overconfidence, then slammed him into the ground with overwhelming force, destroying the grass and leaving him heavily injured and unconscious. Fang Zhou casually remarked that the situation was boring, then left the courtyard with his skeleton following behind. Instructor Lu who soon arrived and asked what had happened. A female student explained that Lu Renjia attempted a sneak attack and was instantly defeated, while another added he was taken down in a single hit. Students reacted with surprise, noting that necromancers were supposed to be weak, yet Fang Zhou had dominated the fight. Lu Renjia was later helped up by classmates but still glared in Fang Zhou's direction, swearing revenge. Seeking privacy, Fang Zhou went to a secluded courtyard behind the school, with his skeleton guarding him. He opened the system interface again, and it prompted him to begin the Undead Realm experience. Fang Zhou weighed the risks and benefits, deciding that exploring the Undead Realm was necessary for growth and could allow him to devour undead to become stronger, despite the dangers. He confirmed the activation. Dark energy engulfed him, and his consciousness faded. He awakened in the Undead Realm beneath a blood-red moon, in a wasteland of bones, volcanic rock, and skeletal trees. A skeletal hand burst from the ground as his armored clone rose into the world. Through the clone's perspective, Fang Zhou saw a status window confirming its stats, equipment, and the skill skeletal armament, which allowed it to forge weapons from bones. Realizing its usefulness, he considered creating a weapon first, but before he could act, 3 massive undead wolves with glowing red eyes emerged from the darkness and surrounded him, preparing to attack as a danger alert appeared. The giant undead two-headed wolf lunged forward, both massive jaws snapping shut at the same time. Caught off guard, the skeleton clone barely managed to roll backward as its claws scraped across the rocky ground. Regaining his footing, he realized that the undead realm was every bit as dangerous as he had expected. As he tried to reposition, a sharp crack echoed through the canyon. Looking down, he discovered that his foot had become trapped in the ribcage of an old buried skeleton. Before he could free himself, the snarling wolf lunged forward again, its 2 heads snapping only inches from his face. Realizing that his foot was still tangled, he struggled against the restraint. Searching desperately for a way to defend himself, he spotted a loose skull near his trapped leg. An idea immediately came to mind. With a swift kick, he launched the skull directly at the attacking wolf. The flying skull smashed into one of the beast's snouts with a loud crack, shattering on impact. However, the wolf barely reacted and quickly shook off the hit. Seeing the result, the clone realized that the attack had done virtually nothing. The undead two-headed wolf continued its relentless pursuit. The skeleton clone leaped and dodged across the jagged volcanic terrain, narrowly avoiding its attacks. As he struggled to adapt to his skeletal body, he admitted that controlling it was more difficult than he had expected. He knew he could not continue fighting this way. Scanning the rocky gorge, his glowing blue eyes suddenly settled on a large pile of discarded bones resting against a nearby cliff. At that moment, the two-headed wolf leaped toward him beneath the blood-red moon. Instead of retreating, the clone stood his ground and activated skeletal armament. Blue and black energy surged around his hand. In response, dozens of bones rose from the nearby pile and floated through the air, rapidly assembling into a massive jagged bone scythe. With the newly forged weapon in hand, the skeleton clone swung it with tremendous force. The razor-sharp blade carved through the air and impaled the undead wolf directly through the chest. The beast let out a painful cry as the scythe shattered its ribcage and pierced deep into its body. The advantage lasted only a moment. One of the wolf's heads suddenly attacked from the side. Before the clone could recover, it clamped its powerful jaws around his left arm and bit down with crushing force. Back in the real world, Fang Zhou suddenly felt a surge of pain. Standing in the secluded courtyard, in the undead realm, the skeleton clone struggled against the wolf's bite and quickly realized that injuries suffered there were being transferred to reality. Feeling the phantom pain himself, he understood that the system was even more dangerous than he had initially believed. Rather than panic, he became even more determined. Since the wolf attacking him was already undead, he focused on turning the situation to his advantage. Using his greater strength, the skeleton clone seized one of the wolf's heads by the neck with his free hand. With a powerful twist, he tore the head completely from its body. Holding the severed head high, he commanded death itself to serve him. With a sharp motion, Fang Zhou's bone scythe transformed into a long interlocking skeletal whip chain. He swung it in rapid, sweeping arcs, releasing a wide circular attack that cut cleanly through the charging wolves. The weapon tore through their bodies, bringing the entire pack down and ending the fight. The battlefield fell silent, leaving only the motionless remains of the undead wolves scattered across the desolate ground. The skeleton clone released his weapon, noting that skeletal armament was even more effective than expected, just as the system-based skill suggested. As he looked at the lead wolf's corpse, he noticed a flickering blue flame rising from it. Curious, he focused on it. Suddenly, a strong sensation of hunger surged through him, sharp and instinctive, forcing him to instinctively clutch his chest. The feeling intensified, overwhelming his thoughts. The system issued instinct-like prompts urging him to consume it. Without resistance, the skeleton clone moved forward and gathered the blue flame. He brought it to himself and absorbed the soul fire in a single motion. A system notification immediately appeared, confirming an attribute increase. His strength rose to 1.1, while his other attributes remained unchanged. Noticing the change, he understood that the increase was linked to skeletal armament and the act of consuming the soul energy. Another system window appeared, identifying his soul power value as 0.1. He questioned what soul power could be used for. The interface expanded and explained that soul power was converted from soul energy and could be used for skill deduction, increasing potential, and enhancing equipment. From this information, Fang Zhou understood the general path ahead. He envisioned the process of exploration, devouring, and evolution as the method to grow stronger. With his skeleton clone's perspective merging with his awareness, he realized that continuous hunting would allow him to grow without limit. He then looked out across the vast canyon, where countless skeletal soldiers wandered aimlessly through the dust. The scale of the hunting ground made the opportunity clear. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a faint sound of footsteps in the distance. The skeleton clone turned sharply toward the source of the sound and focused on a lone dark figure slowly approaching from the shadows. In the dark canyons of the undead realm, a mindless wandering skeleton wielding rusty twin blades slowly approached Fang Zhou's clone. A green system window immediately analyzed the target and identified it as cannon fodder summoned by necromancers, describing it as an apprentice-level undead creature with a frail body and no intelligence, noting that its weakness lay in its soul fire. Seeing the target, the skeleton clone raised his hand and activated skeletal armament. Dark energy gathered from the nearby bone pile and formed a massive jagged bone spear in his grip. The system confirmed that the equipment bone spear had been successfully forged. With the new weapon, the skeleton clone moved forward at high speed and thrust the spear through the chest of the incoming skeleton. The impact shattered its ribcage and released a burst of blue soul fire. The system recorded an increase in agility and soul power. Without stopping, the clone rotated the spear and smashed another wandering skeleton into dust, which triggered another increase in constitution and soul power. He continued absorbing the soul flames as he fought, and the accumulation of power became visible. After clearing the enemies, he reviewed his current status, noting significant increases in all attributes and a large amount of accumulated soul power. Despite his growth, he reflected that it still was not enough and decided he could become even stronger. The setting shifted back to Haiqing High School under bright daylight. Fang Zhou was in the secluded courtyard when he was suddenly called by a familiar voice. A girl, by Xiaochan, stood beside him and tried to get his attention. As he came back to awareness, he was surprised to see her there and asked why she had come. She immediately noticed a wound on his left arm and reacted with concern, pointing it out. Fang Zhou saw that the injury matched the bite his clone had received in the undead realm. Misunderstanding the situation, Bai Xiaochan assumed he had been harming himself due to dissatisfaction with his new profession and criticized him for it. Fang Zhou realized he had been misunderstood and decided that he needed a more private place to conduct future undead realm sessions. He told her the wound was just a minor scratch. Bai Xiaochan remained doubtful but was interrupted by the school bell signaling the start of meditation class. She suggested they return to class, and they began walking together toward the main building. As they walked, Fang Zhou suddenly felt sharp pain in his chest and began coughing. Bai Xiaochan immediately insisted on taking him to the infirmary, but Fang Zhou insisted he was fine. At that moment, a system warning appeared, noting that his undead realm session had lasted too long and advising him to pay attention to his physical condition. Fang Zhou then noticed that his real-world attributes had increased, showing improvements in strength, constitution, agility, and spirit, along with a new option labeled deducible skill. He became focused on the new system feature, realizing it could potentially allow him to create new abilities, similar to top-tier awakened professionals. The bell rang through Haiqing High School's teaching building as students sat in their classroom. At the front, Shun Hongyu, the teacher responsible for meditation class, introduced herself. Holding up a meditation manual, she explained that it contained the basic meditation methods corresponding to each student's profession. She instructed everyone to use meditation to display their professional abilities. Shun Hongyu went on to explain that meditation increased spirit power, the foundation of professional skills. She assured the class that failing at first was normal and mentioned that even she had needed half a month of practice before she could achieve it. Fang Zhou listened quietly from his seat, showing little interest in the speech. At that moment, a system prompt appeared before him, informing him that the skeleton meditation method had been detected and could be quickly deduced to the entry stage. It asked whether he wanted to begin learning it. Fang Zhou immediately chose to learn the skill. Energy gathered around his head as the system completed the process. A notification soon informed him that he had successfully learned the skeleton meditation method. The skill description stated that it was an apprentice-level entry-stage meditation method for necromancers that could gradually increase the spirit attribute through visualizing a skeleton. Fang Zhou considered the explanation and found it unsurprising. To him, visualizing a skeleton was no different from looking at his own skeleton clone. More importantly, Fang Zhou realized that whenever his clone entered the undead realm, it also counted as a form of meditation. That meant that while his main body rested in the real world, the skeleton clone could continue cultivating inside the undead realm. In effect, he could train around the clock. A system notification soon appeared, reminding him that entering the undead realm consumed spirit power. If the growth of either body was neglected, the resulting burden could become dangerous. Understanding the risk, Fang Zhou wasted no time and sent the clone back into the undead realm. The skeleton clone immediately resumed hunting low-level undead creatures. Fang Zhou was very satisfied with this arrangement. While other students had to spend hours cultivating, he could continuously hunt monsters and grow stronger at the same time. Before he could think further, another system notification appeared. It informed him that one of his clone skills had reached instinct proficiency and could now be used as material to deduce an unknown skill for his main body at the cost of 10 points of soul power. Looking at his status window, Fang Zhou saw the option for a deducible skill. He then understood that the deduction function mentioned by the system earlier had to be carried out in the undead realm. Armored skeleton clone prepared to perform the deduction. The clone initiated the process, and a system interface appeared with a progress bar indicating that a new skill was being analyzed. Moments later, the deduction succeeded. The newly obtained skill was Bone Javelin. Its description stated that it allowed the user to condense a bone javelin and throw it at enemies. The attack dealt both armor-piercing physical damage and death energy damage, while its quantity, power, and range depended on the user's spirit attribute and skill proficiency. The skeleton clone then held a newly formed bone spear and noted that the bone javelin skill perfectly matched the weapon it had previously created. A system interface appeared, showing a derivative skill tree branching downward from bone javelin, bone shield, giant bone claw, and bone prison. The skeleton clone was surprised to discover that the skill had even come with a derivative skill tree. Soon, it noticed a pair of low-level skeleton monsters fleeing in the distance. Realizing it needed more soul power, the clone immediately focused on the escaping monsters. Seeing an opportunity to test its newly acquired skill, it rushed after them. A bone javelin shot through the air. The massive bone spear struck one of the fleeing skeletons, smashing it apart and scattering bones across the canyon. A system notification then displayed the rewards from the kill. Its agility increased by 0.05, followed by 0.05 soul power. Another notification showed an increase of 0.05 strength and an additional 0.05 soul power. Looking at the small gains, the clone noticed that the attributes and soul power provided by these weak skeletons had decreased. Opening its status window, it reviewed its updated attribute. The clone concluded that the system would not allow endless farming of attributes from weak enemies. To continue growing stronger, it would eventually have to venture deeper into the more dangerous regions of the undead realm. It resolved to keep hunting low-level undead for as long as they could still provide bone essence. The scene then shifted back to Haiqing High School. Inside the classroom, Fang Zhou sat at his desk and quietly chuckled to himself. His behavior quickly caught Shun Hongyu's attention. A classmate behind him tugged at his sleeve to get his attention, but before he could respond, Shun Hongyu had already walked over and stopped beside his desk. Looking down at him, she criticized him for laughing while everyone else was seriously practicing meditation. Fang Zhou tried to explain himself but was interrupted before he could continue. Lu Renjian loudly declared that Fang Zhou simply could not meditate successfully. The classroom immediately filled with discussion. Some students pointed out that rare professions should have stronger meditation effects, while others argued that it depended entirely on the profession itself. Several students then brought up the fact that necromancers were extremely rare and that the skeleton meditation method was rumored to be incomplete. Because of that, they believed it was understandable if Fang Zhou struggled to enter a meditative state. Fang Zhou remained silent as the conversation continued around him. Shen Hongyu acknowledged that meditation was especially difficult for necromancers, but she told him that difficulty was no excuse to give up. She further pointed out that because he was not participating, the entire class had been distracted. To make her point, she directed everyone's attention toward Lu Rinjia. Above Lu Rinjia's hand floated a fiery dagger handle that he had formed through meditation. Shen Hongyu praised him, explaining that he had already managed to meditate a knife handle into existence within a single class. Lu Rinjia accepted the praise and stated that he had only comprehended about 1/3 of the meditation method. He added that such progress merely placed him at the level of an average genius. He then looked directly at Fang Zhou and arrogantly remarked that Fang Zhou should now understand the gap between a necromancer and other professions. Fang Zhou remarked that the speed was indeed quite average. Lu Rinjia was stunned by the comment and immediately argued that Fang Zhou had not even entered meditation himself and should look at his own situation before bragging. Before the argument could continue, a surge of dark green energy burst forward and forced Lu Rinjia backward. At the same time, Fang Zhou told him to step aside. Shen Hongyu looked over in surprise and told Lu Rinjia to focus on his meditation. She then walked to Fang Zhou's desk and demanded an explanation, reminding him that meditation class was meant for learning meditation and not for fighting. Fang Zhou calmly stood up and explained that he had only wanted Lu Rinjia to move aside. He added that he wanted to show his teacher the results of his meditation progress. Bai Xiaochan watched nervously from nearby. Around the classroom, students began whispering among themselves. Some wondered whether Fang Zhou had actually succeeded in meditating, while others argued that even if he had succeeded, he could not have progressed very far. Ignoring the discussion, Fang Zhou activated the skeleton meditation method. A powerful wave of dark energy erupted from his body and swept through the classroom. The force alone pushed several students backward. Shen Hongyu grabbed her hat to keep it in place as she stared at the scene in disbelief. She could not understand how someone could achieve such progress within a single class period. Behind Fang Zhou, the phantom image of his armored skeleton clone appeared. Standing within the swirling energy, Fang Zhou confidently remarked that compared to an average genius, he was probably 100 million times better. At that moment, Instructor Lu Hu entered the classroom. He commented that their results with the meditation methods seemed quite good. He then announced that there would be a test the next day. Fang Zhou looked over in surprise and asked about the test. The announcement immediately caused an uproar throughout the classroom. Students complained that combat class was arriving too soon, while others worried that they had not even reached the entry stage of their meditation methods yet. Amid the commotion, Lu Rinjia shot Fang Zhou a hostile look. He inwardly mocked him, believing that combat class would be completely different from meditation training. In Lu Rinjia's view, Fang Zhou was only a weak mage, and he was confident that Fang Zhou would not be able to keep showing off once the fighting began. In the undead realm, mindless skeleton monsters wandered through the rocky canyons. The armored skeleton clone moved across the barren landscape. Through its connection with the clone, Fang Zhou observed that after reaching the entry stage of the skeleton meditation method, the amount of time he could remain in the undead realm had increased significantly. Determined to make full use of that advantage, the clone raised its bone spear and resolved to kill as many undead creatures as possible before its spirit power ran out. It immediately charged forward. The clone cut through one skeleton after another, smashing them apart as dust and debris filled the canyon. As the battle continued, it pushed itself harder, determined to defeat even more undead. Eventually, after destroying a large number of skeletons, the clone slowed down. Leaning on its spear, it realized that most of its spirit power had already been exhausted. At that moment, a system notification appeared. It informed the clone that Fang Zhou's professional level had increased and that the accompanying skeleton clone could now be strengthened. The clone noted that its efforts had not been wasted and immediately accepted the upgrade. A pillar of green light engulfed its body as the system began the enhancement process. When the light faded, the clone emerged in upgraded armor. Its status window displayed the new information. Its rank had advanced to Apprentice Middle. Its attributes had increased to Strength 5, Constitution 3, Agility 3, and Spirit 3. Its equipment remained a bone spear of gray inferior quality. Its skills now included skeletal armament at instinct proficiency and a newly acquired skill called Brutal Strike at the entry stage. Its soul power remained at 10. A second notification confirmed that the upgrade had automatically granted the new skill. The clone was surprised to learn that upgrading could provide additional abilities. The skill description explained that Brutal Strike allowed the user to instantly unleash tremendous strength in an attack, with the power determined by the user's strength attribute and skill proficiency. Satisfied with the result, the clone concluded that the new skill would allow it to eliminate undead creatures more efficiently. Before it could continue, a wave of weakness swept through the clone as its remaining energy rapidly drained away. It quickly realized that it had become distracted by the upgrade and skill notifications and had forgotten that its spirit power was already overdrawn. Unable to continue, the clone dropped to one knee and supported itself with its spear. The scene then shifted to Haiqing High School's sports field. Students walked along the running track, while Fang Zhou sat on the concrete steps with a hand pressed against his forehead. His head ached from excessive spirit power consumption, and he recognized that his current spirit attribute was still too low. Bai Xiaochan approached and asked what was wrong. She pointed out that he had looked unwell ever since meditation class and had been in that condition throughout the week. Fang Zhou gave a tired smile and told her that he was fine, explaining that he had simply been practicing too much every day. At the same time, he reminded himself that no one could learn about the system. To avoid exposing it, he decided it would be safer to enter the undead realm only when he was alone. As they spoke, Lu Renjia passed by with another student. Looking over at Fang Zhou, Lu Renjia mocked the necromancer profession, claiming that Fang Zhou had become weak after only a little extra meditation practice. His companion joined in, saying that reaching the entry stage of a meditation method was nothing special. Lu Renjia then added that, in the end, true value came from strength, not meditation progress. Bai Xiaochan stepped forward and defended Fang Zhou, arguing that he had never offended anyone and questioning why Lu Renjia and his friends kept targeting him. Lu Renjia dismissed her complaint, insisting that he was only telling the truth. Fang Zhou then walked over and calmly asked Lu Renjia whether he wanted to be beaten again. The comment immediately angered Lu Renjia. He argued that he was no longer the same person he had been a week earlier. As he clenched his fist, orange energy gathered around his hand. Lu Renjia proudly revealed that he had already learned a professional skill and claimed that defeating Fang Zhou would only take a single move. Before the argument could escalate, a stern voice ordered everyone to stop. The students turned and saw instructor Lu Hu approaching. Lu Hu reprimanded them, reminding them that the school taught combat skills to fight vicious ghosts, not to settle personal disputes with classmates. Lu Renjia quickly backed down and admitted his mistake. Lu Hu then turned to Fang Zhou. Referring to Fang Zhou's performance in meditation class, he advised him to work just as hard in combat training. Fang Zhou politely agreed. As Lu Hu walked away, Fang Zhou noticed that the instructor seemed to be paying special attention to him. A moment later, Lu Hu stepped onto the center of the sports field and ordered the students to assemble. The class quickly gathered. He then instructed a student to bring out the equipment for today's lesson. Soon, two students pushed a large covered cart onto the running track. Fang Zhou watched with curiosity as Lu Hu pulled away the covering. Beneath it stood a humanoid test golem. Lu Hu explained that it was an apprentice-level test golem used to measure attack and defense capabilities. Using the weakest Abyss Demon unit, the Imp, as a reference, he explained that a defense value of 100 was required to block its claws head-on. One student examined the worn-looking machine and questioned whether it might break under their attack. In response, Lu Hu struck the golem's head with a loud metallic clang and declared that no new student had ever managed to destroy one. He even promised that if anyone could dismantle a test golem through their own strength that day, he would personally apply for a reward of 20 alliance contribution points for them. The announcement immediately energized the class. Hearing the reward, Fang Zhou recalled that contribution points functioned as a common currency in this world and were required to purchase various items and skills. The students eagerly volunteered to go first. Lu Hu organized them into a line and announced that the testing would begin with the common professions. A dark-haired student stepped forward and cast Fireball. The spell exploded against the test golem, but Lu Hu announced an attack score of only 48 and told him that he still needed more training. The disappointed student complained that the attack had felt much stronger than the result suggested. Next, a red-haired student used Crippling Strike and received a score of 41. After him, a blue-haired archer fired a petrifying arrow and earned a score of 50. One after another, the students completed their tests. When the common professions had finished, Lu Hu announced that the remaining special professions could now come forward in order. The common profession students gathered together and complained about their result. None of them had managed to score above 60, making the promised 20 contribution points seem completely out of reach. Some of them then began wondering what kind of scores the hidden and special professions would achieve. Standing in line, Fang Zhou glanced at the system interface before looking down at his hands. Since most of his combat strength currently came from his skeleton clone, he began wondering whether the test golem's attack values could be calculated cumulatively. Seeing Fang Zhou standing quietly in line, Lu Renjia mocked him, claiming that his silence and hesitation clearly showed that his attack power would rank near the bottom of the class. Fang Zhou paid little attention to the taunt and merely responded with a casual acknowledgement. Confident in his own abilities, Lu Renjia stepped forward and declared that he would demonstrate the gap between them now that he had mastered a professional skill. He immediately launched into action. Activating Phantom Dagger, Lu Renjia leaped forward and struck the test golem with a powerful slash. The machine's display quickly registered a score of 80. After checking the result, Lu Hu announced that Lu Renjia's attack capability was 80. Pleased with the outcome, Lu Renjia proudly pointed to it as proof of the strength of his hidden profession, Phantom Assassin. However, one of the students reminded him that he was not the only person in the class with a hidden profession. Lu Hu then checked his clipboard and called Yi Fan forward. Yi Fan acknowledged the instruction and stepped onto the field. As he approached, nearby students whispered among themselves. They noted that Yi Fan had awakened as a demon hunter and had already attracted the attention of the school's senior staff, who had recruited him into a specialized research group. Naturally, many were curious about the score he would achieve. Yi Fan raised his hand and summoned a large curved blade as energy gathered around him. He then jumped forward and unleashed Vengeance Strike. The test golem displayed an initial score of 65. Some students were surprised by the result, commenting that it was only slightly higher than the scores achieved by ordinary professions. Yi Fan, however, remained calm and pointed out that his attack sequence was not finished. He immediately launched a second skill. With a burst of speed, he unleashed Vengeance Combo, delivering a series of consecutive strikes. As the attacks landed, the golem's score continued to climb. The display rose from 69 to 88 before increasing further with each hit. After the final strike connected, the score settled at 100. Lu Hu then officially announced Yi Fan's attack capability as 100. Watching the entire demonstration, Fang Zhou confirmed his earlier suspicion. The test golem's evaluation system could indeed calculate cumulative damage from consecutive attacks rather than relying on a single strike. As Yi Fan walked away, Fang Zhou quietly assessed his own chances. Since the golem counted accumulated damage, he concluded that destroying it would not be difficult for him either. After achieving a score of 100, Yi Fan stood confidently on the testing field, convinced that no one in the class could surpass him. Nearby, Bai Xiaochan complained that Yi Fan had only reached that score by stacking multiple attacks together. She regretted not attacking a few more times herself. Lu Renjia immediately mocked her, pointing out that an assassin-type profession would never gain a combo skill like that. Before their argument could continue, Lu Hu called Bai Xiaochan forward for her test. She nervously stepped onto the field and reminded herself that, as the holder of a hidden profession, she could not afford to embarrass herself. Gathering wind energy around her body, she rushed forward and struck the test golem. The machine registered a score of 31. Lu Hu announced her attack capability as 31. Bai Xiaochan could only sigh, concluding that support professions simply lacked offensive power. Lu Renjia burst into laughter and ridiculed the result. He claimed that if he had awakened as an assassin, his score would easily have exceeded 80. The testing continued. Next, Gu Zhiqiu stepped forward and used Chain Wind Energy Missile, earning an attack score of 72. After him, Zhao Yuan activated Shield Armor Charge and achieved a score of 69. Chun Yong then used Giant Hammer Smash and registered a score of 84. As the results accumulated, students discussed the impressive performances. Even so, no one had managed to surpass Yi Fan's score of 100 or destroy the golem. Someone then pointed out that one hidden profession had not yet taken the test. That person was Fang Zhou, the Necromancer. The moment his name came up, Lu Renjiao laughed and dismissed the idea that Fang Zhou could accomplish anything. He doubted Fang Zhou would even reach 10 attack points and questioned whether his skeletons could stand properly at all. Fang Zhou calmly asked whether Lu Renjia was really so certain that he could not win the 20 contribution points. Confident as ever, Lu Renjia declared that if Fang Zhou managed to destroy the golem, he would eat it on the spot. Fang Zhou simply smiled and reminded him to remember those words. He then walked to the center of the field and asked everyone to step back. Lu Renjia assumed Fang Zhou was worried about being laughed at for a low score, but Fang Zhou explained that the skill he was about to use required a lot of space. Dark clouds gathered overhead as green magical chains spread around him. Moments later, 10 skeletons rose from the ground. The sight stunned everyone present. Students immediately questioned how an apprentice-level necromancer could summon 10 skeletons when newly awakened necromancers were usually limited to only 2. Some even wondered whether Fang Zhou had already advanced to the Black Iron rank. Even Instructor Lu Hu found it hard to believe. He recalled that Su Xinyan, widely regarded as the most talented necromancer in history, had only been able to summon 5 skeletons when she first awakened. The comparison made him question whether Fang Zhou's talent might be even greater. Watching the reaction, Fang Zhou quietly noted that he had already held back. Otherwise, the attention he attracted would have been even more overwhelming. He then gave a single command for the skeletons to attack. The undead army immediately charged forward. Their speed shocked Lu Renjia, and they quickly surrounded the test golem with a barrage of attack. The score on the display rapidly climbed from 30 to 45 and then to 60 before finally stopping at 65. Seeing the result, Lu Renjia relaxed and laughed. He argued that the attack value was nothing special. Other students agreed that while 65 was respectable for a normal warrior, it seemed underwhelming for a summoner controlling so many skeletons. Lu Renjia mocked the result further, pointing out that each skeleton had contributed less than 10 points on average. Fang Zhou calmly told him not to rush to conclusions because the test had only just begun. When Lu Renjia questioned him again, Fang Zhou snapped his fingers. Green energy burst outward. Since 10 skeletons were not enough, he decided to summon 20. A second wave of skeletons emerged from the ground, creating an army of 20 undead warriors. The entire field erupted in shock. Bai Xiaochan watched excitedly and cheered for Fang Zhou, saying she had known he could do it. The skeleton horde resumed its assault. The score quickly climbed to 81, then 97, and soon surpassed 108. Under the relentless attacks, one of the golem's arms was completely destroyed. A massive explosion followed. When the smoke finally began to clear, the golem's head flew into the air while its damaged display crashed to the ground. The screen showed a final score of 999. The students were stunned before breaking into loud disbelief. Fang Zhou had pushed the golem beyond its limits and completely destroyed it. Meanwhile, Lu Renjia stared at the wreckage in horror. Fang Zhou calmly walked over to the shattered machine and placed a hand on its severed head. He reminded Lu Renjia of his promise and informed him that he could start eating the golem now. Lu Renjia could barely respond. Fang Zhou then said that he did not actually have to eat it if he did not want to. However, he warned Lu Renjia to stay out of his sight from now on. Terrified, Lu Renjia immediately ran away while swearing that he would settle the score another time. Afterward, Bai Xiaochan rushed over and excitedly asked Fang Zhou how he had become so strong. She even begged him to teach her. Fang Zhou awkwardly replied that he had only been doing normal meditation training. Instructor Lu who soon approached as well. He praised Fang Zhou's performance and promised to fight for a place for him on the school's specially cultivated seed list. The scene then shifted to the principal's office. The white-haired principal sat behind his desk reviewing a report on the latest awakening result. Out of 10,000 new students, 9,103 had successfully awakened, resulting in an awakening rate of roughly 91%. He reviewed a list of 85 rare professionals selected for the seed program, including Zhao Yuan, Bai Xiaochan, Gu Zhiqiu, and Yi Fan. The principal considered adding all 85 directly to the school's list of 100 seed candidates. However, when he reached Fang Zhou's profile, he paused. After looking over the information on the Necromancer, the principal coldly concluded that the profession had no future and decided that Fang Zhou should be excluded from the seed list. In the principal's office, the principal was seated at his desk when he instructed someone to come in. Instructor Lu entered quickly with several papers in hand. The principal asked why he was not in combat class and how he had time to report something. Instructor Lu responded that he had an urgent matter to report. The principal looked over the document and asked why he was in such a hurry. He then immediately located the relevant file. Instructor Lu presented Fang Zhou's file and identified Fang Zhou as a necromancer. He strongly recommended that Fang Zhou be added to the school's seed list. The principal acknowledged that the necromancer profession had strong potential but stated that in practice, it was extremely difficult to fully develop. Instructor Lu countered by pointing out that Major Su Xinyan was also a necromancer and had combat power comparable to other mages. The principal responded that Su Xinyan only appeared successful because she had been fully nurtured by him, her former mentor, and questioned what qualifications Fang Zhou could possibly have. He then reminded Instructor Lu that Fang Zhou's parents had once been comrades in arms and were recognized as Federation heroes, but stressed that the seed list was extremely important and came with both resources and responsibility. Instructor Lu insisted on his recommendation and submitted reports from Fang Zhou's meditation and combat classes. The principal reacted with surprise after reading them, noting that Fang Zhou had learned the skeleton meditation method in his very first meditation class and could summon over 20 skeletons in actual combat. Instructor Lu argued that Fang Zhou's talent could allow him to make history for necromancers. The principal stopped the discussion and decided to evaluate Fang Zhou's results after the simulated battlefield was opened. As he examined the file more closely, the principal expressed interest in seeing what Fang Zhou was capable of. Outside, Fang Zhou walked together with Bai Xiaochan. Bai Xiaochan asked how he had managed to achieve such results, noting that summoning so many skeletons in the first combat class was unusual. Fang Zhou replied that it was simply a matter of summoning a few more and that it was not a big deal. Bai Xiaochan accused him of being overly humble to the point of arrogance, but Fang Zhou repeated that he did not think it was impressive. Internally, he reflected that he could not reveal that his current strength was only a fraction of what he could actually do. He smirked quietly as Yi Fan called out to him and asked him to wait. Yi Fan confidently declared that he had never been weaker than anyone and that among everyone in Class 1, only Fang Zhou was worthy of being his opponent. Bai Xiaochan and Fang Zhou both fell silent at the statement. Fang Zhou declined the challenge and started walking away, saying he had no interest in dealing with him. Bai Xiaochan found his behavior rather strange. Yi Fan stopped him and clarified that it was not a simple challenge, but a request for him to become a sparring partner. Yi Fan recalled that after awakening the rare demon hunter profession, he had joined a demon hunter research group where a sparring partner of equal strength was required for further study. Fang Zhou questioned why he should participate in Yi Fan's research. Yi Fan offered 10 contribution points, explaining that it covered 2 weeks of sparring services along with room and board. Fang Zhou immediately agreed and shook hands to confirm the deal. Yi Fan was satisfied, remarking that Fang Zhou truly lived up to being the rival he had chosen, then expressed surprise that he had agreed so quickly. Fang Zhou then told him to follow without delay. As they walked, Bai Xiaochan asked Fang Zhou if he had really accepted such a strange person so easily. Fang Zhou replied that 10 contribution points was quite a significant amount. Fang Zhou privately reflected that those at a certain place likely needed resources like these. As Bai Xiaochan and Fang Zhou walked together, Bai Xiaochan wondered aloud if Yi Fan was a second-generation rich kid, since he seemed unusually generous. Fang Zhou dismissed the idea and explained that Yi Fan was not wealthy at all and that the contribution points had been advanced by the Research Association. Bai Xiaochan was surprised and asked if the Research Association was really that generous. Fang Zhou clarified that it was only in advance and that Yi Fan would eventually have to repay it. He further commented that, given Yi Fan's extravagant spending habits, he would likely end up in debt for about 20 years after graduation. Bai Xiaochan reacted with surprise at this explanation. At that moment, Yi Fan called for them to hurry and led them into a building. Inside, Yi Fan introduced the laboratory and asked for their opinion. Fang Zhou noted that it was a highly well-equipped facility and remarked that the treatment for rare professionals was indeed extraordinary. A man then introduced himself as Chen Qingshan, a silver-level Gale Ranger and the person in charge of the Demon Hunter Research Association. Fang Zhou and Bai Xiaochan greeted him, and Chen Qingshan acknowledged them. Fang Zhou observed that although Chen Qingshan worked in logistics research, he still carried the aura of someone who had experienced frontline battles. As they walked through the lab, Chen Qingshan explained that recently in the Abyss Mystic Realm, a senior demon hunter had achieved a legendary crown and successfully slain an Abyss Lord, demonstrating immense combat power. He then stated that after Yi Fan awakened his demon hunter profession, the Haiqing Military Academy placed great importance on him and established the research group to fully develop his potential. Chen Qingshan also mentioned that he had reviewed Fang Zhou's files and, if Fang Zhou was interested, they could even establish a separate research association for him. Fang Zhou declined the offer. Internally, he thought he did not want to end up spending 20 years repaying debt after graduation. Chen Qingshan accepted his refusal and decided to proceed directly with the actual combat research. As Fang Zhou and Yi Fan headed downstairs toward the training area, Chen Qingshan explained that strict safety measures had already been put in place. He assured them that they could focus entirely on the battle without worrying about their lives being in danger. Fang Zhou considered Yi Fan's strengths, noting his speed and burst damage and how they would likely counter his skeleton summoning abilities. System displays his skill tree as Fang Zhou decided it was time to use skill deduction to further increase his combat power. He began upgrading his abilities. Summon Skeleton advanced, Bone Javelin reached level 2, and Bone Shield reached level 1. While Yi Fan removed his jacket in preparation for the match, Fang Zhou suddenly remembered that he had recently mastered the Bladed Bow's weapon mastery skill. Yi Fan then stepped forward with his bow and confidently claimed that even if Fang Zhou summoned 20 skeletons, he still would not be able to defeat him. Fang Zhou merely smiled as he selected and equipped the apprentice robe, suggesting that things might turn out differently. As green energy surrounded him, he reflected that after investing points into his skills and preparing his equipment, the battle would no longer be so predictable. The system displayed his updated skill information, showing that Summon Skeleton had been grasped, Bone Javelin had reached the mastered level, and Bone Shield had become proficient. System notifications appeared before him. The Apprentice Staff, a gray inferior grade weapon produced through mass production, slightly increased the effectiveness of spells. The Apprentice Robe, also a gray inferior grade item, slightly reduced the damage he would receive. Yi Fan gripped a massive, bladed bow. Gazing across the arena, Yi Fan remarked that such unwavering confidence was exactly what he expected from his rival. Yet his expression hardened as crackling green energy surged around his body. In the blink of an eye, a green aura burst from Yi Fan's body as he closed the distance, appeared directly in front of Fang Zhou, and launched a fierce attack. High above the arena, 3 researchers observed the standoff through a thick glass window. One of them questioned who would claim victory, drawing an immediate answer from another. It would definitely be Yi Fan. Having interacted with him extensively over the past week, the researcher claimed Yi Fan's combat instinct was the most terrifying he had ever witnessed. Nearby, Teacher Lu and Old Chen murmured between themselves. Teacher Lu noted that the researchers were far too hasty in drawing their conclusions. When Old Chen questioned why he was even there, Teacher Lu replied that as a teacher, he naturally had to observe a match between 2 of his most outstanding students. Old Chen raised an eyebrow, asking if Lu genuinely believed Fang Zhou could defeat Yi Fan. Teacher Lu confirmed it without hesitation. Glancing down at a document detailing Fang Zhou's capabilities, he acknowledged that while the boy could indeed summon a multitude of skeletons, it didn't change the underlying fact that he remained a physically fragile mage. However, he added with a knowing look, Yi Fan had just comprehended an extremely powerful displacement skill the day prior, which might bring them quite the surprise. Old Chen let out a surprised murmur of intrigue. Without warning, Yi Fan lunged forward, swinging his massive bladed bow in a vicious arc toward Fang Zhou. Fang Zhou swiftly dodged backward, narrowly avoiding the heavy blade. He realized instantly that Yi Fan's close-quarters combat strength was overwhelming. He needed to maintain as much distance as possible. But Yi Fan simply shifted his stance, leveling his weapon as a traditional bow. Radiant blue energy coalesced along the frame as he warned Fang Zhou not to think distance would keep him safe. He loosed a blinding volley of glowing blue projectiles, unleashing his demon-hunting arrow. The azure arrows tore through the air straight for Fang Zhou. Fang Zhou immediately cast Summon Skeleton. The undead minion stepped forward, raising its bony arms to absorb the brunt of the incoming demon-hunting arrow. Seeing the defense hold, Yi Fan drew his bowstrings back again, determining that he had to disrupt Fang Zhou's summoning rhythm. Suddenly, a jagged bolt of lightning struck Fang Zhou's active summoning circle, violently shattering the construct. Realizing his summoning had been interrupted, Fang Zhou scrambled to dodge the relentless rain of blue arrows, exhaling sharply at the close call. He quickly slapped his palm against the arena floor, igniting a fresh green summoning circle. Invoking the spell once more, multiple heavily armored skeletons tore their way out of the ethereal light. Looking down at the escalating chaos, Teacher Lu remarked that the younger generation was truly formidable. He told Old Chen that regardless of whether Fang Zhou ultimately lost to Yi Fan, today's performance was enough to earn his approval for the seed list. He cautioned his colleague not to rejoice too early. Old Chen merely watched the arena with intense focus, noting internally that Fang Zhou's temperament was exceptionally calm and experienced. He firmly believed the young mage was still hiding a trump card. Below, Fang Zhou watched with an icy calm as Yi Fan furiously battled the advancing skeletons. Assessing the situation, he realized he could no longer hold back. Raising his skull staff high overhead, swirling torrents of deathly green energy spiraled around him as he unleashed his summoned skeleton at full power. Up in the observation room, the researchers stared in utter shock. One gaped at the sudden appearance of 30 skeletons, demanding to know how a kid who had only awakened a few days prior could have upgraded his skill to such an absurd degree. Back on the battlefield, Yi Fan stood completely surrounded by the skeletal horde. Instead of panicking, he simply smirked, praising the display and declaring that only with this level of ability was Fang Zhou truly worthy of being his rival. Quietly, Fang Zhou pulled the hood of his camouflage cloak over his head. He knew that for Yi Fan to remain so composed while encircled by undead, the archer definitely had a hidden backup plan. Yi Fan's weapon erupted with a fierce, blinding green aura as he cleaved through a skeleton, executing a devastating fierce strike. The undead warrior shattered into pieces, crumbling to the ground in a cloud of bone dust. Glancing back at the encroaching horde, Yi Fan's eyes began to glow with a toxic luminescence. He calculated that he finally had enough distance. The emerald light in his eyes flared violently as he activated Shadow Charge. Across the arena, Fang Zhou stood in absolute silence, deeply concealed beneath his camouflage cloak while gripping his skull staff. Without warning, Yi Fan shot forward with terrifying speed, leaving nothing but a lingering trail of green energy in his wake. Teacher Lu declared the match over, certain that a fragile mage caught in close quarters could never withstand Yi Fan's ferocious assault. Old Chen remained completely silent. Closing the distance in a flash, Yi Fan brought his glowing weapon down upon the cloaked figure, unleashing a crushing vengeance fierce strike. Hidden beneath his hood, whispering that Yi Fan had taken the bait. In a split second, Fang Zhou triggered his bone shield, projecting a massive, glowing green skull emblem into the air. The ethereal barrier intercepted the heavy blade with a deafening crash, completely absorbing the impact and throwing Yifan backward. Stumbling to regain his footing, behind the glass, Teacher Lu gripped the console in sheer disbelief, exclaiming that it was impossible for Fang Zhou to have comprehended an entirely new skill on his own. Down below, the two combatants stood far apart on the scarred arena floor. Fang Zhou offered a polite apology, admitting that since Yifan was much stronger than he had anticipated, he was forced to employ some unconventional tactics. Yifan frowned in confusion just as Fang Zhou's skull staff slipped from his grasp, clattering loudly against the stone. Teacher Lu watched, utterly bewildered by the bizarre display. Beside him, old Chen finally broke into a smirk, musing that the kid's combat tactics were remarkably dirty. Fang Zhou had used an optical camouflage cloth to hide among the skeletons. Surrounded by countless identical skeletons, Yifan couldn't identify Fang Zhou's real body no matter how hard he looked. Yifan cursed that he couldn't find Fang Zhou's real body. He called for Fang Zhou to come out before continuing to destroy skeleton after skeleton, but as the battle dragged on, he realized that if it continued, he would eventually be worn down to death. Left with no other choice, Yifan activated another skill. A terrifying burst of power erupted from his body, causing every nearby skeleton to collapse without him even touching them. Witnessing the scene, Instructor Lu's eyes widened in disbelief, wondering how Yifan had managed to master that skill at his current level. Professor Chen nodded, explaining that although the skill had a very long cooldown, it possessed overwhelming burst damage and excellent disengagement capabilities. At the same time, Fang Zhou quietly moved away through the collapsing skeletons. The moment Yifan noticed the movement, his eyes lit up. Without giving Fang Zhou another chance to escape, Yifan activated his skill again, charged forward at full speed, and launched another attack at Fang Zhou. Yifan screams in exertion. A green fireball descends from above. A skeleton wearing a camouflage cloak looks up as Yifan unleashes his Skyfall strike. A massive green explosion hits the ground with intense force. Yifan stands near the fallen skeleton. Holding his bow, he declares that while his opponent's strength is great, he also has his pride and cannot lose. Looking up, he urges them to hurry and call the medical staff over, stating he doesn't want to cause any casualties. Up in the observation deck, Old Chen, Teacher Lu, and Bai Xiaochan observe the arena. Yifan notices their expressions and thinks that their expressions are wrong, and this isn't the look you give to a victor. Yifan looks forward. The skeleton in the camouflage cloak lies motionless on the ground. Yifan looks down in shock. Seeing the skeleton's skull exposed, he realizes in alarm that this isn't Fang Zhou. Yifan realizes that it is a reverse disguise plus a double disguise. He thinks that it is not that Fang Zhou disguised himself as a skeleton, but rather he made the skeleton disguise itself as him disguising himself as a skeleton. Suddenly, a skeleton grabs Yifan from behind. He cries out. Fang Zhou stands calmly behind Yifan, addressing him and thanking him for letting him win. Yifan releases his weapon. Fang Zhou and Yifan stand together in the arena. Yifan admits defeat. Yifan slumps forward, thinking in frustration that the consumption from his last skill was too great and he has no strength left. A skeleton catches the collapsing Yifan. Looking up at his rival, Yifan hesitantly thanks him. Fang Zhou gives a thumbs up, telling him not to mind it and to just consider it his sympathy for the loser. Skeletons carry Yifan away on a stretcher. Yifan yells that failure is merely the fuel for him to become stronger. Fang Zhou approaches Teacher Lu and Old Chen. Old Chen states that although he is reluctant to admit it, student Fang Zhou's combat power far exceeds his expectations. Fang Zhou respectfully acknowledges Professor Chen. As they continue talking, Old Chen adds that with such proficient methods, he will definitely become a tactical master in the future. Fang Zhou thinks to himself, wondering why he feels like he isn't being praised. Teacher Lu speaks to Fang Zhou, asking if the shield spell he released just now is a new skill he comprehended himself. Fang Zhou confirms it to Teacher Lu. Displaying a glowing bone shield and bone javelins, Fang Zhou explains that he gained some insights while practicing Summon Skeleton and comprehended 2 new skills. He states that he named them Bone Javelin and Bone Shield. Old Chen and Teacher Lu look forward in silence. Teacher Lu claps Fang Zhou on the shoulder, praising him as a good boy who really knows how to give them surprises. Fang Zhou asks his teacher to please be gentle. Turning to Old Chen, Teacher Lu notes that since Brother Qingshan happens to have professional equipment here, they should test Fang Zhou's new skills. Old Chen agrees with no problem, stating he will go arrange it. Fang Zhou leans forward tiredly while Teacher Lu holds him up. Fang Zhou explains to his teacher that his spirit power has bottomed out, so he is afraid he cannot test these 2 new skills. Teacher Lu tells him he doesn't need to worry about such a small matter at all. Looking at a box filled with spirit power recovery potions, Fang Zhou asks if they are pouring draft beer there, thinking about chugging it from the bottle. Fang Zhou drinks a blue potion directly from a bottle, thinking that this is the first time he is seeing someone drink recovery potions like water, and finding it very refreshing. Teacher Lu, Old Chen, and Fang Zhou stand near a test golem. Teacher Lu tells him to get ready and they will begin the test. Old Chen confirms the golem is ready and Fang Zhou agrees. The test golem stands ready as Teacher Lu instructs him to use his skill to attack it, just like in combat class. Fang Zhou agrees. Holding his glowing skull staff, Fang Zhou casts Bone Flying Spear. He throws a bone spear at the golem, and Teacher Lu reads out an attack ability of 85. Old Chen smiles as he looks at a tablet while a female researcher exclaims what a high attack ability it is. Old Chen notes that for a newly awakened student, it is exceptionally outstanding, adding that the key is that this is his self-created skill. Fang Zhou looks forward as Teacher Lu instructs him to get ready, as next they will test his skill's defense ability. Fang Zhou agrees. The test golem charges forward. Fang Zhou blocks the golem's punch with a bone shield, casting Bone Shield. Teacher Lu reads out a defense ability of 80. Teacher Lu and Old Chen converse, with Teacher Lu noting that his attack is comparable to a Storm Mage, while his defense is comparable to an Earth Knight. Teacher Lu pats Fang Zhou heavily on the shoulder, declaring that he was simply born to be a necromancer. Fang Zhou asks his teacher if he can stop patting him, thinking that others might think he is there patting his stats. Old Chen walks alongside Fang Zhou, telling him that the skills he comprehended are very excellent, and suggesting he enter them into the skill repository. Old Chen explains that the so-called skill repository is a skill collection center established by the Federation, where everyone can use contribution points to exchange for skills inside. Fang Zhou smiles at Old Chen as Old Chen adds that their research institute has a branch of the Federation skill repository which he can use anytime. Fang Zhou replies that he will have to trouble him then. Fang Zhou and Teacher Lu stand before large doors. Teacher Lu explains that after uploading the skills, Fang Zhou can exactly use the contribution points he has on hand to exchange for the skills he need. Fang Zhou replies that he understands and thanks Teacher Lu. Fang Zhou opens the large doors and walks into a dark room, questioning aloud if it isn't a skill library and wondering why it is completely dark. Suddenly, a massive glowing library is revealed. Taking in the sight, Fang Zhou remarks that it is exactly as expected of the Federation's skill repository. Looking up at a large bookshelf, Fang Zhou notes that all the skills he knows can be found there. He stands before a glowing pedestal and looks at the system screens. A system notification confirms that the entry of his new skills, Bone Javelin and Bone Shield, is successful, and rewards him with 200 contribution points. Another system notification states that as the developer of the new skill, 50% of the subsequent exchange fees for this skill will become his personal profit. Reading this, Fang Zhou marvels that there is also continuous profit. Standing inside the massive library, Fang Zhou thinks to himself that it was hard to enter the skill repository once, so he cannot just exchange for a few skills and go back. He pulls a book titled Skeleton Modification Technique from a shelf. Holding the glowing book, he thinks that it is perfect, and he will use these skills as a blueprint to complete more skill deductions. A system notification displays that the soul power available for skill deduction is 100 point. In the skill database, Fang Zhou reads an upgrade system prompt asking if he wishes to consume soul power to upgrade the detected skeleton meditation method. Fang Zhou presses yes on the glowing system interface. A swirling green death aura envelopes Fang Zhou, and he thinks to himself what a potent death aura it is. Fang Zhou finds himself standing before a massive, crowned skeleton king. A system notification confirms that the skeleton meditation method has improved successfully. The skeleton king extends a glowing book toward Fang Zhou. Holding the glowing book in his hands, Fang Zhou wonders if it is for him. An open book floats before Fang Zhou, emitting glowing runes as the skeleton king looms behind him, revealing the skeleton king's meditation method. A system prompt details the enhanced meditation method, stating it is an enhanced version of the skeleton meditation method that increases meditation speed by 100% compared to the original and can boost all Necromancer class skills. Fang Zhou smiles confidently and clenches his fist, thinking that not only does it increase his leveling speed, but it also boosts his skill power, meaning the soul power consumption really was not in vain. Fang Zhou smirks in the darkness, thinking that however, no matter how powerful a skill is, it requires appropriate spirit energy to unleash. He reflects that in his previous battle against Yifan, his spirit energy was nearly depleted. Standing alone in the vast, bright library, Fang Zhou thinks that luckily he still has plenty of contribution points and can exchange them for a skill that increases spirit energy. Pointing forward as a skill exchange prompt appears, Fang Zhou declares that he chooses presence of mind. A system notification confirms that Fang Zhou has consumed 20 contribution points and the skill exchange is successful. Fang Zhou looks at an open book showing a meditating figure, noting that this skill can passively increase the spirit recovery speed for magic users, and when activated, it can restore an additional amount of spirit energy. Fang Zhou reads a system prompt about consuming soul power, thinking that the only flaw of presence of mind is its high learning difficulty, but for him, that is no obstacle at all. The system detects the learnable skill material and asks if he wishes to consume 10 soul power points to master it quickly. Fang Zhou presses yes. Holding the glowing blue book, a final system notification confirms that the skill presence of mind has been mastered successfully. Fang Zhou admires his glowing blue aura in the library, noting that very well, there is a noticeable improvement in spirit recovery speed. Smiling confidently, he thinks to himself that in his current state, if he faces Yifan again, he thinks he could simply overwhelm him with an army of skeletons. Holding a stack of books, Fang Zhou thinks about acquiring Vine Entanglement, Swamp Spell, Earth Wall Spell, Spiderweb Spell, and Ray of Weakness, deciding he can exchange these skills first as well to serve as a reference for future skill upgrades. A system notification confirms that Fang Zhou has consumed 60 contribution points and the skill exchange is successful. Looking at items inside a glowing display case, Fang Zhou thinks that possessing skills alone isn't enough, as he needs gear with appropriate power to complete the setup, noting that an apprentice low-tier user with an F rank can only use poor gray-white grade equipment. Reaching for the display, a system prompt confirms the gear exchange is successful, consuming 40 contribution points. Fang Zhou wears his new hat and a glowing necklace, which the system describes as a poor gray apprentice necklace that can slightly increase spirit recovery speed. A glowing green apprentice ring appears on his finger, described by the system as a poor gray standard assembly line ring that can slightly reduce skill cooldown time. Finally, a system prompt details the apprentice mage 4-piece set, stating it increases training speed and skill proficiency improvement speed by 10%. Fang Zhou smiles as a green aura envelopes him, thinking that this will make his leveling speed much faster. Walking down a grand hallway in the library, Fang Zhou thinks that this harvest is truly bountiful and the Federation's skill database is exceptional as expected. A large skeleton clone suddenly appears behind Fang Zhou. The skeleton clone looks at him as Fang Zhou thinks that he almost forgot. The skeleton clone also needs matching skills. 3 glowing skill books float in the air, and Fang Zhou thinks that weapon mastery, parry, and war cry are 3 skills essential for the skeleton clone to learn. A system prompt confirms another successful skill exchange, consuming 30 contribution points. Fang Zhou closes the glowing book named Weapon Mastery, thinking that even though the skill database is impressive, it is quite taxing on contribution points, and he is not sure if he will find another good job like this as a training partner in the future. Back in the arena, Old Chen, Teacher Lu, and Fang Zhou talk. Old Chen asks how it went and if he learned any new skills. Fang Zhou confirms that yes, the gains were enormous this time. Looking to the side calmly, Fang Zhou hears Yifan call out that he doesn't accept this result. Yifan holds a blue potion and challenges Fang Zhou, telling him to chug the potion, stating he was unaware of his tactics last time, but this time he will defeat him in no time. Fang Zhou asks if he is sure he wants to challenge him now, as he has just upgraded his skills. Looking determined and angry, Yifan declares that he will not settle for being second best for the rest of his life, and this time he will do his utmost to defeat him. Teacher Lu states that this counts as extra training and will require paying more contribution points. Fang Zhou replies that as long as Yifan agrees it is fine, as in the end he will have to pay it off himself later. Tossing the blue potion back to Yifan, Fang Zhou says they should begin then, adding that he will give the potion back as Yifan might need it in a bit. Yifan stammers in anger, yelling furiously as green energy flares. Fang Zhou stands calmly amidst a green energy trail as Yifan yells out Heavenfall Strike. Observing the fight, Bai Xiaochan remarks that Yifan used his ultimate move right from the start, praising his combat instinct as truly brilliant and noting a blitz attack is his only path to victory. As Old Chen wonders how Fang Zhou will handle this after obtaining new skills, a large green summoning circle appears beneath Fang Zhou. Bai Xiaochan watches in surprise, asking if he will just use summon skeleton like before. Within seconds, the battlefield is completely overwhelmed as thousands of skeletons erupt from the magic circle, flooding the area in all directions. A deafening explosion rocks the ground. As the smoke clears, a stunned Teacher Lu observes that the attack's power has drastically increased. Standing nearby, an equally astonished Professor Chen realizes that Yifan actually managed to evolve and upgrade his skill during their previous clash. Conversely, Fang Zhou maintains a serene smile. He praises Yifan's strengthened attack but confidently reveals that his own abilities have also leveled up. Hearing this, Yifan suddenly realizes he is entirely trapped by a massive undead army. Glaring at the encroaching skeletons, he screams in utter frustration that he was so close to succeeding. All traces of his former confidence vanish, replaced by sheer terror as the fatal reality sets in. He desperately begs the horde to spare his face, but the undead instantly swarm him from every conceivable angle, cutting off any route of escape. In a matter of seconds, Yi Fan is reduced to a bruised and battered mess, suffering yet another crushing defeat beneath the weight of the skeletal army. Watching the dust settle, Fang Zhu calmly informs Professor Chen that the day's sparring session is officially over. Professor Chen lets out a heavy sigh, estimating that Yi Fan will need at least a week to recover, before asking Fang Zhu if he is truly opposed to founding a Necromancer research association. Fang Zhu flatly refuses. Inwardly, he knows that allowing anyone to research his powers would risk exposing his hidden system, which would bring him endless trouble. The location then shifts to the quiet halls of the skill repository, where a mysterious woman approaches a glowing magical crystal. As she finishes scanning the data stored inside, her eyes widen in absolute shock. Staring at the crystal in sheer disbelief, she gasps aloud, completely stunned that a necromancer has managed to register a brand new skill. And a system notification confirms that she consumed 20 contribution points and successfully exchanged for the skill. She reads the glowing green skill book, noting Bone Javelin and Bone Shield. She thinks to herself that to think skeleton-type spells could be used like this means the developer of this skill is absolutely a genius. Su Xinyan walks confidently away from the bookshelves holding the book, declaring that she must tell her dad about this. Teacher Lu sits across from Principal Su Tianhua at his desk. Principal Su Tianhua asks Teacher Lu why he is there again. Teacher Lu replies that he must apply once again to add Fang Zhou to the seed list, and Old Chen adds that he can also vouch for him. Principal Su Tianhua drinks his tea while asking Old Chen why he is also joining in on this nonsense, stating that even if a necromancer performs well now, they won't have enough corresponding strength skills to learn in the future. Principal Su Tianhua suddenly spits out his tea in shock as Teacher Lu explains that Fang Zhou has already comprehended 2 necromancer skills on his own. Old Chen stands next to Teacher Lu and explains to the principal that comprehending new skills is nothing, but the important thing is that the skill's effects must be good, and starts to describe his skill intensity. Su Xinyan walks into the office holding the skill book, interrupting to announce to her dad that 2 new necromancer skills have appeared in the skill repository. Principal Su Tianhua looks confused, questioning if she means necromancer skills. Su Xinyan summons glowing green bone javelins and a bone shield, explaining that she roughly studied them for a bit, and although she hasn't finished learning them yet, the skill's effects are definitely amazing. Principal Su Tianhua and Su Xinyan converse, with Su Xinyan asking her dad if he knows who the developer of these skills is, to which he stammers in reply. Su Xinyan looks excited with sparkling eyes, declaring that she wants to take him as her master. In the classroom, Fang Zhou meditates with his eyes closed. Yi Fan calls out to his rival, telling him to hurry and fight him. Yi Fan points at Fang Zhou while Bai Xiaochan stands behind him. Fang Zhou asks if he wants to fight again. Sitting at his desk looking bored, Fang Zhou asks how many times Yi Fan has challenged him already, and questions if he doesn't need to cultivate and improve. Yi Fan speaks confidently, saying this time is different. Yi Fan proudly points to an embarrassed Bai Xiaochan, declaring that over the past few days, with Bai Xiaochan's help, his strength has advanced by leaps and bounds and he can definitely defeat him. Bai Xiaochan clarifies that it was Yi Fan who begged her on his knees in public, and she only agreed to avoid misunderstandings. Fang Zhou looks over at Bai Xiaochan with interest, asking about her helping to improve strength. Bai Xiaochan explains her new skill with a smile, stating that when she was sleeping a few days ago, she comprehended a super useful support skill called Lullaby, which can speed up spirit power recovery speed and at the same time enhance the effects of meditation or training. Yi Fan stands beside Bai Xiaochan and explains the skill's limitation, noting that however, this skill can only be used 3 times a day, and he spent 2 contribution points every week just to exchange for this opportunity. Yi Fan leans aggressively over Fang Zhou's desk, while Fang Zhou thinks to himself, wondering if this guy wants to spend his entire life paying off debt. Yi Fan urges him on, stating that this time he has the confidence to defeat him. Fang Zhou looks down thoughtfully, thinking that regarding improving the effects of meditation and training, he wonders if it also has an effect on the skeleton Fang Zhou. Fang Zhou suddenly grabs Bai Xiaochan's shoulder, completely ignoring a shocked Yi Fan, and asks Xiaochan if she can sell her remaining usage of Lullaby to him. Bai Xiaochan hesitantly replies that it is not impossible, while Yi Fan yells at Fang Zhou not to ignore him. Fang Zhou raises his hand, casting Summon Skeleton. Standing surrounded by the summoned skeletons, Yi Fan hears Fang Zhou tell him to play with these skeletons first and to remember to transfer the contribution points to him after he finishes. Yi Fan curses him, asking how he dares look down on him like this. Fang Zhou turns to Bai Xiaochan and politely asks her to use Lullaby on him. She agrees. Bai Xiaochan casts Lullaby on a seated Fang Zhou, enveloping him in glowing green musical notes. In the red-skied undead realm, the skeleton clone meditate. The skeleton clone acknowledges the status effect of Lullaby, noting that it is very good that the effect of lullaby can also influence the skeleton clone. A system prompt displays the skeleton clone's attributes, listing its rank as apprentice upper, attributes as strength 1.8, constitution 1.7, agility 1.7, and spirit 1.6, with a soul power of 50. Spotting an enemy in the undead realm, the skeleton clone remarks that it can use them perfectly to test out the clone's skill effects. An enemy skeleton charges forward with a spiked club. The skeleton clone tightly grips its bone spear and blocks the incoming attack using parry. A system prompt details the mechanics of the parry skill, stating it is grasped at the apprentice level and allows the user to assume a defensive stance to parry the next incoming attack, reducing the damage taken. The skeleton clone activates weapon mastery, transforming its grip. The skeleton clone violently smashes the enemy skeleton. The skeleton clone quickly spins its weapon around for a release. It then pierces the enemy's skull with a reverse thrust. Standing victorious, the skeleton clone notes that even the system rewards gained have increased by 10%, declaring that lullaby is truly a divine skill. A system prompt confirms a gain of 0.11 strength and 0.55 soul power. In the distance, two massive enemy skeletons approach. The skeleton clone violently smashes the ground with its weapon, unleashing a blue energy trail. As it dashes forward, system notifications confirm multiple gains of 0.11 strength and 0.55 soul power. Looking at a large army of skeletons massed in the distance, the skeleton clone notes that there is still a whole undead legion. Deciding on its next move, it roars out, taunting the entire legion to come at it together. The army of skeletons turns their attention toward the skeleton clone, brandishing their weapons. As the skeleton clone roars, a system prompt details the battle cry skill, grasped at the apprentice level. It explains that letting out an inspiring battle cry grants a temporary increase to 3 major attributes: strength, constitution, and agility, with the duration and extent of growth determined by the strength attribute and skill proficiency. The horde of skeletons charges forward. The skeleton clone unleashes a furious flurry of blue energy strikes against them, triggering another system notification of a strength and soul power increase. Standing amidst blue flames with its body surging with power, the skeleton clone declares that it can still become even stronger. Rapid system prompts flash, confirming multiple continuous gains of 0.11 strength and 0.55 soul power. Suddenly, the skeleton clone looks up in surprise. A massive skeletal angel descends, wielding a huge glowing sword. The being is fully revealed with large wings and a halo, identified as a bone angel. Standing tiny before the massive bone angel in the fiery landscape, the skeleton clone questions in disbelief if a boss just spawned directly in the beginner village. The massive bone angel descends from the sky toward the skeleton clone, fiercely swinging its giant sword downwards. The giant sword crashes into the ground as the skeleton clone dodges backward. Crouching behind a rock while dark energy gathers around it, the skeleton clone thinks to itself that if this attack hits, it will definitely die. Leaping into the air toward the giant sword, the skeleton clone realizes that since defense is completely useless, it will take the initiative to attack. The skeleton clone activates Battle Cry with its eyes glowing intensely blue. Charging its bone spear while leaping through the air, the skeleton clone strikes the bone angel's shoulder using a shield-breaking stance while roaring furiously. A green energy icon flashes as Brutal Strike is activated. Roaring again, the skeleton clone rapidly strikes the bone angel using an arm-swinging stance. The massive bone angel recoils backward from the continuous assault, leaving the skeleton clone wondering what it is going to do next. The bone angel forcefully slams its giant skeletal hand down, surprising the skeleton clone with how decisive it is. The bone angel then fiercely swings its giant sword at the skeleton clone. The skeleton clone blocks the giant sword using its parry skill, sliding backward along the rocky ground from the immense impact. A massive blast of blue energy erupts from the rocky ground upon collision. As the bone angel walks slowly toward the recovering skeleton clone, the clone thinks that it is a good thing it shattered one of its arms in advance. Otherwise that hit would have caused all its bones to fall apart. However, its weakness has also been exposed, noting the blue fire burning on the bone angel's shattered skeletal arm. The bone angel raises its giant sword with its remaining arm, prompting the skeleton clone to wonder what it is trying to do. The bone angel begins spinning rapidly, generating a massive green tornado. The skeleton clone watches in alarm as the attack starts, realizing that things are not good. The bone angel spins rapidly, creating a massive green tornado of energy. Watching in awe as the spinning force shatters a mountain, the skeleton clone realizes that it is actually using the centrifugal force of spinning to make up for the strength of its lost arm, directly shattering the entire mountain. Target crosshairs appear as the green tornado charges toward it, and the skeleton clone notes that, moreover, during its spin, it has absolutely no way to aim at its weakness. Backed against a steep cliff, Facing a dead end, the skeleton clone wonders in alarm where this bag of bones gets such a strong desire to fight, realizing with dread that it is a dead end. Looking determined as it faces the incoming sword wind, the skeleton clone resolves that it can only risk it all. It tightens its grip on its bone staff. As the violent green sword wind powerfully scrapes the rocky ground, the skeleton clone observes that just the sword wind alone is already enough to scrape bones and shear flesh. Spotting an opening, the skeleton clone activates charge, dashing forward with blue energy. It strikes the bone angel's leg, causing it to shatter while roaring fiercely. The skeleton clone mocks it, thinking that such a big guy actually has osteoporosis and should go back and get some calcium. The bone angel's chest is exposed, revealing a blue fire core. Realizing that the soul fire core is exposed, the skeleton clone decides that now is the time and throws multiple bone javelins directly at the exposed core. The bone angel looks down at the incoming attack in alarm and quickly folds its massive wing to block the javelins. Flapping its wings, the bone angel takes flight into the sky. The skeleton clone remarks that it knew it, as those wings couldn't possibly just be for show. The bone angel raises its sword, forming a giant glowing energy sphere. Standing ready as a system prompt appears, the skeleton clone adds that, unfortunately, its system isn't just for show either. A system prompt confirms that the fusion deduction of web spell and skeletal armament is in progress. A system prompt chimes to confirm the successful deduction of the bone shackles skill, detailing it as an apprentice-level, proficient skill that condenses undead mana into sturdy bone shackles to bind the enemy. It notes that the binding strength, duration, and casting distance depend on the spirit attribute and skill proficiency. The skeleton clone smiles, manifesting a glowing blue bone shackles icon, and remarks that it is very good and exactly as it deduced, observing that skill deduction can fuse the characteristics of other professional skills into even more powerful undead skills. The giant bone angel raises its sword, preparing to strike from the sky. Pointing 2 fingers forward to activate the spell, the skeleton clone taunts the creature about liking to fly. Massive blue chains suddenly erupt from the ground, tightly binding the bone angel. Firmly gripping the glowing chains and pulling them tight, the skeleton clone activates bone shackles and yells for it to get down. The bone angel crashes violently to the ground, weighed down by the chains. Forcefully pulling the massive chains downward, the skeleton clone advises the helpless bone angel not to struggle. The skeleton clone adds that the more it struggles, the more excited it gets. Standing tall and gripping its staff with a flaring blue aura, the skeleton clone executes the bone angel as a massive beam of energy pierces downward. The skeleton clone stands atop a rock, holding the blue soul fire from the bone angel, declaring that it will gladly accept it. As the blue soul fire absorbs into the glowing gem on its armor, a system prompt displays a massive gain of 100 soul power. The skeleton clone notes that it actually added so much soul power, but wonders why its body hasn't grown. Reading a new system prompt, it learns that its base attributes have reached the race limit and it cannot continue to gain attribute. The skeleton clone realizes that no wonder it can't continue to gain attribute. Gazing up thoughtfully at the vast, desolate red sky, the skeleton clone wonders what else is there above the sky and states that it wants to see. It reaches its hand toward a race evolution system prompt detailing its current race as an apprentice-level skeleton and offering an evolution path to a black iron-level skeleton warrior for an estimated consumption of 100 soul power point. The skeleton clone presses yes. Dark swirling energy envelopes the skeleton clone as the evolution begins, with it declaring that its path of evolution officially begins now. The skeleton clone's face is then completely consumed by intense blue and black flames. As the path of slaughter drives evolution, the skeleton clone roars as it successfully evolves into a bone warrior. Following the successful evolution, its base attributes, strength, constitution, agility, and spirit, each increase by 30 points. Upon evolving, the skeleton clone unlocks an additional race talent known as Bone Monarch. The talent grants a special blessing that increases damage dealt to skeletons while reducing damage taken from them. Recognizing that this skill is perfect for fast grinding in the undead realm, the clone spots a low-level skeleton sneaking nearby. The clone stands still and allows the small skeleton to draw close. The low-level skeleton strikes the clone directly on the head, but the blow does virtually nothing. Confirming the massive damage reduction, the clone realizes it no longer needs to defend against weak skeletons. A new system prompt appears, offering an option to upgrade its skeletal armament following the evolution. After selecting yes, blue energy surges through the air as the equipment upgrade initiates. The system confirms the upgrade is complete, unlocking the white common grade bone armor. As the bone armor fuses with its body, the clone feels a significant boost to its strength and overall defense. With its stats and gear fully upgraded, the clone turns its glowing blue eyes back toward its target. Apologizing insincerely, the clone steps forward to use the terrified little skeleton for target practice. The skeleton clone unleashes a powerful strike, sending a shockwave flying forward. The weak skeleton mob clutches its head in panic and confusion. The blast detonates, completely obliterating the surrounding skeleton mobs in a massive explosion. Walking through the destruction, the clone notes that pairing its fist attacks with bone armor vastly increases damage against skeletons. After receiving minor stat boosts of strength and soul power, it realizes that low-level mobs no longer provide meaningful growth. Looking out across the desolate landscape, the clone decides it must travel deeper into the undead realm. With its blue eye gleaming in the dark, the clone sets off toward the higher-level regions. Fanzhou notices that his clone's boss fight took up too much time while he was meditating. He opens his eyes and pants heavily for breath. Bai Xiaochan supports him as he stumbles, asking if he got injured during meditation. Fanzhou realizes the damage taken during the boss fight transferred to his body, vowing to be more careful. He holds up a hand to reassure Bai Xiaochan that he is fine. Yifan calls out to Fanzhou, stating that the summoned bones can no longer hold him. Yifan powers up with green energy as he breaks free from restraint. Yifan leaps forward, demanding a fair fight from Fanzhou. Fanzhou casts his skill, Bone Shackles, summoning chains that bind his opponent. Bound tightly by the spectral chains, Yifan groans in painful defeat. Yifan protests that the duel was unfair due to an unknown skill, but Fanzhou tells him to return once he saves up enough contribution points. Onlookers wonder if Fanzhou created the Bone Shackles skill himself, while a trapped Yifan begs the crowd for assistance. Fanzhou walks down the steps alone as evening approaches. Realizing it is already Friday, Fanzhou reflects on how busy he has been getting stronger, and decides it is time to visit home. He makes his way toward the Resource Exchange Department building. Fanzhou visits the Resource Exchange Department to swap 10 contribution points for 100,000 Lungxia currency. Although the receptionist warns him that contribution points are hard to earn, Fanzhou insists he needs the money immediately. The receptionist hands over a briefcase filled with cash, telling him he can contact her for future exchanges. Carrying the cash, Fanzhou thinks about how this money will help the children back home live a little better. Fanzhou arrives at the Yunduo orphanage, where children are playing outside in the courtyard. Sister Ruru watches the energetic kids and wonders how many of them will successfully awaken before Fanzhou calls out to her. Fanzhou greets Sister Ruru with a smile, while carrying bags filled with food. The children excitedly swarm around Fanzhou asking for treats, and he reassures them there is enough food for everyone. Sister Ruru asks Fanzhou about the results of his school's awakening test. Fanzhou reveals he awakened as a necromancer, and Sister Ruru kindly reassures him that any successful awakening is what truly matters. The kids nearby overhear, with one finding necromancy scary while another thinks skeletons sound super cool. To entertain them, Fanzhou summons 2 small, weakened skeletons. The children enthusiastically play around, tossing a skeleton's skull like a ball. Fanzhou then hands Sister Ruru a briefcase intended for the director. Suddenly, both Fanzhou and Sister Ruru sense an unexpected presence. A shady-looking man wearing a gold chain approaches with a smirk, asking if his arrival is disturbing them. At Yuduo Orphanage, a suspicious crowd gathers outside, looking like total bad news. Sister Ruru steps in front to confront them, asking why they're here early when they promised a couple of days. The thug shoves her down hard, screaming about how no one delays money owed to the Tiger Claw gang. Standing over her, the thug makes it clear that today is the absolute final deadline. If they don't pay up immediately, the entire orphanage land used as collateral becomes gang property. As the guy laughs, a little girl quietly sneaks up beside Sister Ruru. She suddenly hurls herself straight into the thug, declaring herself the world's #1 troublemaker defending her sister. The thug tried to kick the kid, leaving Sister Ruru screaming out for Xingxing in horror. Before the guy's foot can even reach the little girl, Fanzhou's skeleton clone swoops in out of nowhere to block the kick. The thug panics and stumbles back after his kick gets blocked by a literal summoned skeleton. Fanzhou steps up and places a reassuring hand on the little girl's head, ordering the thug to apologize immediately or face the consequences. One of the henchmen whispers to his leader, Brother Hu, pointing out that Zhou is just a necromancer. Ghost-faced martial artist Lu Hu ignites with aura and completely shatters the skeleton clone in one strike, dismissing Zhou as a trash class for trying to act tough. Fanzhou doesn't even blink at the display, casually wondering if this guy is supposed to be a professional. Walking alongside Sister Ruru, Zhou asks who these creeps are, and she explains they came from the Tiger Claw Training Equipment Company under the pretext of selling gear for the kids. Flashback shows the kids practicing on training equipment as Ruru reveals she and the director took out a loan to buy the gear early so the kids wouldn't fall behind. She explains that the company's entire business model was just a front for an illegal loan shark scam. Ruru anxiously bites her lip as compound interest makes the debt impossible to pay, causing Fang Zhou to snap at her for keeping such a massive problem a secret. The lead loan shark points aggressively at Zhou, warning him to stay out of adult business since a broke kid definitely doesn't have a casual 100,000 Longxia currency lying around. Zhou cuts him off mid-lecture by chucking a loaded briefcase straight at his face, yelling catch as the thug frantically grabs it midair. Zhou steps up to hand over the 100 grand and tells the thugs to scram, leaving Ruru completely baffled at where he secured that much cash. The goon pops the briefcase open and confirms it's all legit, calling over his boss to verify the stack. Boss who hurls the briefcase straight into the dirt, yelling at his crew to shut their mouths. Gritting his teeth, who admits his boss wants the orphanage's land itself, making 100,000 look like absolute pocket change. Pointing his baton straight at Zhou, who scoffs at the money, while Zhou calmly demands to know what else they want since the debt is paid. Who flashes 5 fingers in Zhou's face, claiming the delayed payment bumped their total up to a wild 500,000. Ruru panics at the crazy number, but Zhou just gives a calm smirk, realizing these thugs were only ever here to cause trouble. Who yells right back, openly admitting it, and questioning why a bunch of orphans deserve to occupy prime real estate. The Tiger Claw gang thugs charge him with weapons out, hyping themselves up to seize the orphanage land by force today. Fang Zhou just smirks at their little mob, casually dropping summon skeleton to match their minion energy. An ominous aura washes across the field, instantly making the blonde thug break into a nervous sweat. A squad of armored skeleton warriors manifests right in front of them. Fang Zhou stands calmly as his giant skeleton warrior looms behind him, telling the thugs to face the consequences. One of the skeletons leans right into the blonde thug's space, interrupting his smoke break. Trying to act tough, the blonde thug hopes that necromancers are the weakest class and anyone can shatter a rookie's summons. The mob storms into the orphanage grounds, hurling insults and telling the kids to get out of their way. A terrified little girl curls up on the ground, crying out for help. Fang Zhou officially loses his patience, flinging out dark aura and ordering his summons to scatter. The thugs laugh in delusion, rushing headfirst into the skeleton squad thinking it's an easy win. A thug swings a spiked club full force at a skeleton warrior, but the summon's eyes just flare up with blue fire, utterly unbothered. The skeleton warrior cleaves forward with its massive blade, sending a thug flying through the air like a complete ragdoll. As blood sprays and the thug screams in agony over his severed hand, terrified by how ridiculously strong these summons actually are, the skeleton gently covers a young boy's eyes to spare him from the carnage. Watching from the side, the mace-wielding thug can't comprehend how a simple student summons such absurdly strong skeletons. Assuming a squishy necromancer is useless in melee, he leaps in with a full-force bone-shattering strike. Sister Rura frantically yells for Fang Zhou to dodge, but he doesn't even bother moving. The strike lands with a massive explosion, completely stopped by Fang Zhou's translucent bone shield. The thug panics in utter disbelief, realizing his ultimate move didn't even leave a scratch. Without missing a beat, Fang Zhou raises his hand and casts bone shackles, binding the guy midair in spectral green chains. With a swift tug, he yanks the chains down, violently slamming the thug face first into the pavement. Coughing up blood while pinned to the floor, the thug learns the hard way that this student is built different. Bound tight in glowing bone shackles, the guy thrashes on the ground while screaming at Fang Zhou that he's gonna kill him. Before he can even finish his rant, 2 massive skeleton clones manifest behind him and lock giant saw blades right around his neck. Towering over his pinned target with glowing blue eyes and dark aura radiating off him, Fang Zhou drops a cold ultimatum: kneel and apologize, or straight up die.